Okay, team, let's get going. Captain, my captain. Right.
That's really distracting, actually. Okay, do you want me to?
Hit it.
Alrighty. First thing, for those of you who have been on B&T, we got a new thing on your desk. You will see a folder. Inside the folder is a copy of every bill that's on the list, every fiscal note for those bills, and any reprints that are there. I'm on the little middle ground since we had to take your bill books away a couple years ago.
Very good. All right. We're going to go through and see what we can get done. First up, actually, he's not here. Oh, no, he's not here. He wouldn't be here. I'm like, where's Ben? All right, so I'm a little rusty on this. Even though we did win the Goldenrod Award, and we evidently, because of this accomplishment, there's a pie in there that you might want to take a look at it as you pass through the kitchen.
Or eat, if you just don't want to
Right.
just look at it.
I'd rather them look. I'd rather eat some.
There are no plates or utensils in this, all you can do is look.
Oh, you can find some somewhere. We have some. We'll have to be better at that. All right. So first up, 32.
All right. Senate Bill 32 is a bill that you all did have. It's a bill that was supported by the Department of Assessments and Taxation. It deals with a current law property tax exemption for dwellings owned by disabled veterans or their surviving spouses. The application materials that are required in order to be eligible for this credit, for this exemption, are being expanded in this bill by adding to it that they can include a rating decision of the disabled veteran's disability to a document that they can provide to SDAT. So that is the bill. It all has no,
Fiscal note.
yeah, likely no fiscal note, just because, I mean, you know, to the extent that someone maybe hasn't been able to provide the certification that's currently required, there may be additional people who can now do this type of application, but in theory, no. The only amendment that I'm aware of is that Senator Hester requested to be added on as a co-sponsor.
Second.
All right. Who wants to be on the bill? Raise your hand. All right.
Is that everyone?
That's everyone.
And everyone is
Plus
present.
Hester.
Yep.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move favorable.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, Senator Jennings, that's yours. Hmm? 61.
All right, Senate Bill 61 this time shifts over to a property tax credit, and this one is for public safety officers. This bill is a identical bill to what passed out of the Budget and Tax Committee last year and passed the Senate floor unanimously but died in the House. This one is a program that authorizes all counties in the state of Maryland to give a credit for dwellings of public safety officers. What this bill does specifically is it strikes the current definition of a public safety officer, which talks about firefighters, park police, et cetera, and instead would require the locality to define who, for them, would be a public safety officer. Also, what it does is there was a codified limitation of the credit of up to $2,500 per dwelling. Again, this bill would then put the decision of how much of a credit to offer into the hands of the local governments who choose to enact this. So that's the bill. Senator Hester has also requested to add on to this bill.
She's paying attention to what we're doing over here.
I'll move the amendment.
Let's hold on that for just a second. Go ahead, Senator Elf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Erica, last year there was a bill around federal police officers. Would this bill encompass that, theoretically allowing the locals to define it? They could theoretically define these federal police as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, does anybody else want to be on this bill? Sure.
Oh, okay, hold on.
This is 61.
Is that everybody again, or not?
Looks like everybody.
Not
Anybody not?
substitution.
Okay. All right, is there a motion as amended with everybody and Hester?
Second.
All's in favor? Opposed? Jack is taking it to the floor. You know, you keep coming up with those great ideas, I might lose my job up here. All right, 65, Senator West.
All right, Senate Bill 65. This is now in the purview of recordation tax. This is.
Oh, let me just say something real quick before, I'm sure everybody who's been here knows this, but you see these property tax credits. They're all related to local government, for those of you who've been around. But you'll also see subtraction modifications. And those are about what affects usually your income tax, your state income tax. I feel, and largely, it's easier, quite frankly, to give authority, which we normally do. There are some times when on the property tax credit, the bills ask for a requirement that they occur. And those are a little trickier, because then we're asking the locals, and usually MACO chimes in and says they don't like it. But obviously, in these cases, the one we just voted on, that wasn't the issue. Anyhow, a little
Okay,
perspective.
back to Senate Bill 65. You do have a reprint on your desk in the folder for this one. It is not simply a sponsor amendment. This one deals with the extent to which the exemption on recordation tax applies to the filing of purchase money mortgages for trusts and for mortgages. The testimony at the bill hearing was that there was some perhaps interpretation that, let's say, the deed of trust and the mortgage was securing more than just the cost that you paid to purchase the house. There was some interpretation that the entirety of what you were filing would be excluded from recordation tax instead of just the portion that was applicable for purchasing the house. So this bill was introduced to help clarify that the recordation exemption applies only to basically the purchase price of the property. I talked to the sponsor about potentially changing the wording to instead say for the portion that secures the purchase money, thinking that that's more clearly tied to the actual dollar amount that should be excluded. Then the sponsor wanted to add on page 2, the reprint in section 2, just a notation that this is clarifying and is not substantially changing existing law. That is the bill and the amendment.
So I'm waiting for a question on this, because
Yes. You got it? Okay.
I think legally and all, it's in a good place. But which one of you want to take this to the floor?
Not me.
Right, so we need to understand this a little bit more if we're going to actually vote on it. Does anyone even know where to ask a question? Okay, so I think I'm going to, what's that? No. All right. We can, and what I think I want to do is have just a couple people get into this a little bit, because these are issues that we are going to have to deal with, and I feel like we may be a little light on this right now. That we need to figure this out, and so I think what I'm going to do is ask a couple of you afterwards to start working on these and thinking about these kinds of issues as they come up. Okay? All right. 175.
All right, Senate Bill 175, a number of years ago, the public school construction program was amended to allow the School for the Blind to be eligible to receive money from that pot of money every year. That would have expired in fiscal 2028. This bill would make that eligibility permanent. I am aware of no amendments.
Move favorable.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Would you like to be added? Absolutely. So, as amended,
Favorable.
all's in favor? All right, opposed? I think I'll do that one.
Hurry up on it.
Study up. All right, 205.
All right, Senate Bill 205 basically corrects a drafting error from last year. There was a bill last year that did some modifications to the funding formulas for county libraries and was accidentally cutting off any funding after fiscal 2027. So what this bill does, just puts in the language that we typically use to make the funding mandate permanent, which was how the formula works. That was just a technical error last year.
All those in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay. Senator King, you'd like to be added to that? Sure. As amended. You'd like to be added? Who would like to be
I'd
added?
love to be added.
Let's raise our hands, everyone.
Good bill, good bill.
Hold on.
Everybody
Wait.
but? No, everybody.
Everybody?
Everybody wants to be on that. You know how to put a popular bill in, Senator.
Absolutely.
All right.
I'll make a mistake for you in here. Put in a popular bill.
Let's see if the Senator West bill also is going to be clear as mud or not.
Senate Bill 55 is a bill dealing with the estate tax. So under the estate tax, spouses have the ability to preserve the unused portion of the predeceased, the first to die spouse, for when they file their estate tax. You have to file that at the federal level to claim that. And so state law had been aligned with the federal filing timeline, which was 2 years. That had been extended to 5 years. So the bill just aligns our filing timeline to make that election with whatever the federal timeline is. So instead of changing it to 5 years and then potentially having to come back and amend it, it just says whatever the federal timeline is.
So will it have any impact on what is brought in?
To the extent that widows and widowers are able to have more time to make that election, it would potentially increase the excluded amount when they die. But generally, they can already claim it, so it's just any fiscal impact it would be tied to having a few more years to make that election. Generally, it's going to come into play when they may be under the maximum exclusion amounts or near it, and so some people don't file it because they don't think they would need it, but it's kind of hard to determine, exactly. Estate tax fluctuates a lot too because it depends on who actually dies each year.
Okay. Questions? How do people feel about this bill? Is there a motion?
Second.
All's in favor? Opposed? Okay. Figure it out later. 153.
Senate Bill 153 has to do with the state investment portfolio. It's legislation brought by the Joint Committee on Management of Public Funds. Current law allows the state treasurer to basically invest certain state money that's unexpended or surplus in certain areas. current law has a restriction of no more than 10% for commercial paper, where all of the other authorized investments don't have any caps. So the first thing the bill does is it repeals that 10% cap. The bill also requires the treasurer to adopt a state investment policy that would, within that, set the thresholds for various investment types. And then the final thing the bill does is it requires the treasurer to provide notice to local governments, because local governments are supposed to have investment policies that are in conformance to standards set by the treasurer's office, so that there's alignment between the state and local investment policies.
So what's the significance of commercial paper?
The testimony indicated that, I think the treasurer's testimony referenced that they looked at other AAA states, and some of them, on average, they found that they may be up to 35% using commercial paper, where we have that 10% limit.
So does this, and this bill, it doesn't change the limit to a higher limit, it's just,
It repeals the limit, and then there's a requirement that they set in regulation the various investment limits, so that they'd have the flexibility and wouldn't be restrained by the statute to,
but don't they already have that authority for all the
for all the other ones they do.
assets?
Yeah, for all the other ones they do.
10% for commercial paper.
No, I understand, but if you're setting all the others already, and you cap this at 10%, that you knew what you could do with the commercial paper, right?
Correct.
Now you're saying, we're gonna give you regulations to set all of them, knowing you have no cap on commercial paper.
Well, I think it would be similar to kind of how like the pension system, so they have asset allocation, so like this type of asset, we have a range, this type of asset, we have a range, so.
Right. We don't limit those other, we gave them complete authority to choose asset allocation in the pension system?
Well, this is separate than the pension system.
I
but
understand,
yeah.
I'm trying to make a,
The way it works with the pension system is they have, their investment consultants come in, they determine ranges that are,
right,
reasonable with the risk tolerance and investment goals of the system. This money is, surplus and unexpended money, so I think it's much shorter term, investment horizons. With commercial paper, I think typically it's, anywhere from 30-day, I think the max typically is like
right.
270. So I mean, it's quicker turnaround.
So are there any other instruments that are limited other than the commercial paper?
Not under the current authorized
Okay.
types of investments. It's the only one that has a limit.
Okay. Senator Quarterman?
It's a question, and perhaps it was answered in the testimony, and I apologize, but what is it about commercial paper that it was singled out for originally? It almost seems like that was a guardrail that was put in at one point, but why? What was that issue before, and is that concern no longer a concern now?
Yeah, there was, I think the fiscal note referenced that back in 2006, maybe? Through the fiscal note or some of the testimony referenced, back in 2006, the limit had been put in, and the investment climate is just much different now than it was back then. There's more sophisticated investment opportunities and the growing amount of funds. I think they note there'd be significant potential for more investment returns on these short-term investments.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
So moved, favorable.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do you have a question, Senator Hellman?
I do. I really don't understand this. I need help.
That's okay.
And
Ask
it's a
your
lot
question.
of money we're talking about. So I also have a question. Obviously, at some point, there was an importance of keeping a 10%, a guardrail up. And I understand they have, if it's a shorter turnaround, they maybe need more flexibility, but what is it about commercial paper as opposed to other asset classes that they're looking at here? I guess, and I missed the hearing, so I was out. So, this is
So the
beyond my,
treasurer's testimony noted that in 2006, it was increased from 5 to 10%. And at that time, their use of it was more limited, just in terms of how they were using it. I think since then, it's evolved and it's become a more sophisticated operation. They've had more ability to use this, but they're limited by the current cap.
All right, we're gonna hold this one, and we're gonna help, we'll have you get some answers from the treasurer.
that'd be great.
You
I can
bet.
follow up.
You
Thank
bet.
you.
Absolutely. Okay. 70.
Okay, Senate Bill 70 expands the income tax subtraction modification to state law enforcement officers that live in political subdivisions with crime rates above the state's crime rate. This bill is the same as last year, which passed the Senate and was stalled in the House.
Questions? All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, anybody wants to be on the bill, raise your hand. Looks like everybody, although Senator McCrae's not in the room. I'm gonna bet he's gonna wanna be on that. Okay, Jackson did? On this? Okay, he is then. Jackson's a floor leader. See what happens when you walk out of the room? All right, 141.
Senate Bill 141 increases the adoption subtraction modification to $12,000 for children with special needs and $10,000 for children without a special need.
All those in favor? We just love these bills. Everybody?
Yeah.
We actually can't figure it out. I can get, I'll try to ask.
It's de minimis though, too. $91,000. Very good. I'm going to, let's go with Zucker on this one. You're losing it. You're getting one later that you didn't expect. 148. Oh, look, there it is.
Senate Bill 148 requires the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth, and Victim Services to help support programs that provide for services for victims of crimes. The bill requires the governor to include in the budget an amount that would bring the total of federal funds and state funds up to $60 million.
Questions? Remember how this works? Yep, it's the big one.
You can handle it, Mr. Chairman.
Actually, I'm gonna let the subcommittee chair handle it. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Sure. Okay, anybody else want to be on?
Oh, sure.
What? You want to be on VOCA? All right, did we get everybody, or is anybody not? I know. Okay. So then that is approved with the committee on. All right, next, 152.
Senate Bill 152 authorizes the Board of Public Works and the State Treasurer to give public notice of state bond sales through Municipal Market Monitor or a similar service and removes an obsolete reference.
Second.
All's in favor? Aye. Okay. I'll just do that. All right, 174.
Senate Bill 174 extends the sunset of the sales and use tax for construction materials and warehousing equipment for redevelopment at the old Bethlehem Steel site in Baltimore County.
Can I add myself to this one?
Anybody wants to add, raise your hand. Looks like unanimous. All those in favor with all of us on this bill?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed. All right, Senator Stallings, you'll do that one.
I know nothing about this.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, that went remarkably fast. Good job, everybody. Now you have the whole rest of the afternoon off. Don't get in any trouble.
It's amazing what change in your committee will make as far as voting sessions.